Hello everybody, welcome back to Political Excess. Today, let's cover the primary results from yesterday, August 9th, as well as the one special election in Minnesota. So let's jump right in, start in Wisconsin. If I go too quickly, feel free to pause. But in the U.S. Senate, for the Republicans, Ron Johnson had only token opposition. He was the winner there. On the Democratic side, also, as expected, Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes, he was the winner there with about 78% of the vote. Neither of these two were very competitive, but if you compare the total votes in the primaries, Republicans did get over 180,000 more votes. So it will be Johnson versus Barnes in November. That will be close, but I think Johnson does have an edge. So let's move on to governor, and this was the big race for the Republicans. Tim Michels was the winner by about 5% over former Lieutenant Governor Rebecca Kleefisch. Kleefisch did do better in some of the more traditional Republican counties surrounding Milwaukee, as well as in Madison and Green Bay. So Tim Michels got about 47% of the vote, and he will go on to take on incumbent Democrat Tony Evers, who is unopposed. And this will definitely be a very hard-fought race down to the very end. My own personal rating for this race is tilt Republican, but Tony Evers is capable of winning this seat. I'll just quickly scroll through the rest of these statewide races if you want to take a look at Lieutenant Governor, Attorney General, or Secretary of State. There were a few close ones in there. Feel free to pause or look at these if you're interested in those. But let's move on to the U.S. House. The 2nd District is very deep blue, so whatever happens on the Republican side is basically irrelevant. However, they did have a extremely close primary there, under 100 votes, which of course will probably be heading toward a recount at this point. But as of now, Eric Olson is slightly ahead there. In the 3rd District, that is the western part of the state, the Driftless area, the Democrats, they had a competitive primary there for that open seat. Brad Pfaff did pull it out with 39% of the vote over Rebecca Cook with 31%. So it will be State Senator Brad Pfaff taking on Republican Derek Van Orden, who was unopposed and ran 2 years ago and lost only by a few points. The rest of these House seats in Wisconsin, there's nothing competitive happening in the primaries, and they're all likely to be safe or very safe in the general election. So let's move on to Minnesota, and let's start in that special election for that 1st congressional district. And the winner there was Republican Brad Finstad over Jeff Ettinger. The margin is just over 4 points, 51% to about 47. Finstad did underperform Donald Trump's margins in most of these counties, but he did do better than Jim Hagedorn did when Hagedorn won a couple of years ago. It's a very slight improvement, and it does make for mixed results. Do you compare to the presidential numbers, or do you compare to the previous House numbers? And I know there was redistricting, but even with all of that, it's hard to paint a clear picture as to who had a good night or a bad night. I think both sides can make a case for it, but I do think Democrats will probably try to claim more of a moral victory than the Republicans. So these two will face off again in November for the next term. So having said all that, let's move on to the statewide races. For governor, the winner for the Republicans was Scott Jensen. That is no surprise. He did get the backing at the convention, so he got 89% of the vote, and he will go on to face incumbent Democrat Tim Walz, who had only token opposition in his primary. Tim Walz is the clear favorite to win at this point in November, but Republicans are hoping they could shake things up somehow over the next 3 months. So I will scroll through here past Secretary of State if you want to look at that, but I'll mention here for Attorney General on the Republican side, the winner there was Jim Schultz with 52% of the vote over Doug Wardlow, who was the nominee last time, who got close but was unable to take down Keith Ellison. So let's move on to the U.S. House. As I said, in the 1st District, it'll be a rematch between Ettinger and Finstad. In most of the rest of these races, there's nothing really to mention. There was either no opposition or token opposition, or the seat will be safe red or safe blue in the fall. So I will scroll through these, but I will stop here on the 5th District. This is right in the Twin Cities. Very deep blue district. However, there was a competitive primary for the Democrats. Incumbent Ilhan Omar had a much closer race than anticipated. With only 50.3% of the vote, she was able to beat a more moderate challenger, Don Samuels, who got 48.2%. So that was unexpected. Samuels did get close, just not quite close enough. And the 6th, 7th, and 8th districts, there's nothing competitive or of note to mention there. So let's move on to Connecticut. And the Republicans had a competitive primary there for U.S. Senate. The winner was Leora Levy with over 50% of the vote. She beat Themis Claridis, who was the more moderate candidate, the more mainstream establishment candidate. So even though this is a blue state, when it comes to the Republican primary, I guess they did not want to water down their nominee. So Leora Levy will go on to take on Richard Blumenthal for the Democrats, who was unopposed, of course, and there is very, very little chance Leora Levy will be able to make it interesting against Blumenthal. And for governor, those nominees were already set up prior to the primary. It'll be a rematch there between incumbent Ned Lamont and Republican Bob Stefanowski. Stefanowski is definitely the underdog in that race. So let's move on to the U.S. House. Most of these races already had their nominees known as they were chosen at the conventions. So I will scroll through here. The only chance the Republicans have to flip any of these districts are in the 2nd District with Joe Courtney, or down here in the 5th District with Jahana Hayes. I still think both Republicans would be the underdog, but those are the two they have a chance to make competitive. And finally, let's check out Vermont. For U.S. Senate, Republicans, they did have a competitive primary. The winner is Gerald Malloy with 43% of the vote, but it's kind of irrelevant who won that nomination because on the Democratic side, Peter Welch was the winner, as expected, no surprise. And Welch should go on to win this seat by a landslide. Down here for governor, no surprise for the Republicans, incumbent Phil Scott. He won that nomination with 69% of the vote. He is the heavy favorite to win, even though he is a Republican in a deep blue state. Whoever the Democrats have and the progressives have, Phil Scott is the clear front runner. If you want to look at the rest of these races for Lieutenant Governor, Secretary of State, or Attorney General, the links, of course, will be down below. Feel free to look at those. But let's move on to the last race, and that is U.S. House for Vermont. There is only the one at-large district. All the focus is on the Democratic side. The winner there is Becca Balint. She got it done with over 60% of the vote over Molly Gray with 37%. Balint is the more progressive candidate, so she was the winner. She is by far the favorite to win in November. Republicans, they have Liam Madden. Don't really even know who that is because this race is safe for the Democrats. So that is it. That is a recap of the primary results and that special election from August 9th. Let me know down below what you think about any of these races. Were there any surprises? Please let me know in the comments. And if you enjoy this channel, please like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.